Hi, and welcome back to the Drama-Free Healthy Living podcast. I'm your host, Jess Cording, and I'm so excited you're here with me today. I'm going to do a little solo episode. I feel like I haven't done one of these in a while, but we're going to be talking about mindfulness for healthcare providers. And this stuff can apply even if you're not a healthcare provider, but healthcare providers we know are incredibly busy in terms of, for example, doctors, maybe they get 15 minutes with a patient, right? Or dietitians, because people don't take us seriously. Like we're running a million different things, having like 5 million different side hustles. If you are someone who works as a mental health provider, oh my goodness, it's a really busy time in that world. Everyone's busy. Everyone's busy. And a lot of us in all industries, is not just healthcare providers, we do run the risk of burning out and getting really out of touch with our body and not processing the, traumas that we deal with, big T, little t. For any of you guys out there, my fellow empaths who know what it's like to be an energy sponge, it's really hard sometimes to draw boundaries and recharge and be mindful with our energy. So I wanted to share a little bit today about one of my favorite tools, which is mindfulness. What's really funny about this is I did not have a mindfulness practice formally until my 30s. I was one of those people that was like, oh, like, that can't relax. I can't sit still long enough to do that. Like that's for other people. It sounds great, but I don't think I can do it. And what's really funny is, all these years later, it's one of my non-negotiables when it comes to taking care of myself. I got the idea for doing this recording because I was asked by a professional group for one of their newsletters to put together a piece about mindfulness for entrepreneurs. And there's a lot of crossover. I mean, a lot of people in the healthcare space are entrepreneurs. And I just wanted to, share a little bit of what I wrote in that newsletter because I feel like it's important for so many of us. But first off, okay, what is mindfulness? Like if you're listening, you're like, I've heard that word, but I don't really know what it means. So mindfulness essentially can just be described as having an awareness of your internal thoughts and feelings and your surroundings. So, when we're in a mindful state, we're able to pay attention to what comes up without judging or reacting, almost like we're kind of walking alongside whatever it might be. Or, we're noticing that this is a thing that is happening. I'm thinking about this thing, but we're not getting sucked in, or we're not judging ourselves for thinking about the thing. So some of you might know this about me, but growing up, I've joked about having a new age mom. Like my mom is a psychotherapist, but before that, she was a certified hypnotherapist. And I grew up going to all different kinds of wellness related events with her, and she talked to my sister and I about what she was learning, and it's so interesting today for me when I'm hearing people talk about things like the law of attraction and um, intentions and energy and and people trying to tell me about these things like it's a new concept. And I'm like, oh yeah, I've been hearing about this stuff for 20 plus years. That's cool. Um, but I was aware of mindfulness, but I just didn't think I was wired for it. Or like reflecting, I think that some of my resistance to it was also rooted in low key teenage rebellion. I mean, early in my career, my friends and family, like they probably would have described me as busy and caffeinated. Those are like two words that come to mind. And I just didn't know how to sit still. I truly believed that mindfulness was something that was only for other people who were better at slowing down or who actually were able to slow down. Um, and I can also look back and acknowledge that some of my inability to sit still really had its roots in trauma response and unresolved trauma and just not, being afraid to sit with my feelings. I think there was definitely an element of that. But I think my younger self certainly would have benefited in so many ways from mindfulness. I mean, mindfulness has been studied so widely and shown to have so many mental and physical health benefits. A few areas where it can be especially helpful its a role in managing stress, anxiety, improving focus, building awareness of our habits and our patterns. It can also, so if we have a behavior that we're trying to change or something that we're like, oh my God, I wish I could stop doing this thing, mindfulness can be a really great tool in becoming aware of maybe why we do that thing or catching ourselves when we are doing that thing so that we can regroup and, redirect our energy or redirect our behavior. I found mindfulness really useful for helping me calm my mind when I'm feeling overwhelmed or when I'm tempted to say yes to something out of habit or a feeling I have of obligation. When my gut knows it's a hell no, but then I feel like I'm supposed to say yes, or, if I don't say yes, the opportunities will dry out. And, so for my fellow empaths out there again, like also, mindfulness is a wonderful tool for setting boundaries with your energy and avoiding taking on other people's stuff. Before I see clients each day, make it a point of breathing for a few minutes, meditating. There's other types of mindfulness, and I'll talk about this a little bit in a few minutes, but it helps me get in tune with what's really a priority and also allows me to tap into where resistance lies. So if I'm having a tough time moving forward with something, mindfulness helps me understand why. And it also helps me cope when I'm dealing with challenges, which, like, come on, it's an inevitable part of being a human on this planet. But why it's so important for healthcare providers is that the people that we care for need us to show up as a dependable, helpful version of ourselves. If we're not dealing with our own shit, we're not going to be a good caregiver. We're not going to provide quality care that the people we're caring for deserve. So it's not just about us, it's also about how are we showing up for other people in our lives. And again, that's not unique to healthcare providers, but it is an area where, if someone's healthcare provider is not doing that, the consequences can be really far reaching, go on to affect more people than just that patient or client. So if you're like, okay, that sounds great, but I don't have time, I feel you. I totally get that. I'm trying to train myself to say I hear you and not I feel you because talking about again energy, but not taking on people's stuff. But you don't have to meditate for 20 minutes with your eyes closed first thing in the morning to reap the benefits of mindfulness. It doesn't have to be that way. Yes, there are people you might encounter along your path that tell you it only counts if you do it first thing in the morning with your eyes closed for 20 minutes. And then but I don't agree with that. And we do have research on this, but I will say even a few minutes can make a big difference. And in my opinion, what's really important is that for mindfulness to be sustainable, you actually have to do it regularly. So if you're trying to implement a routine that doesn't fit into your everyday life, then you're not going to reap those benefits if you're not doing the routine, or if making time and space for that routine is causing you stress or takes away from other essentials. So I just want to take that off your plate. If you're feeling like you don't have enough time to devote to mindfulness, you could look at it as, take the pressure off, but also out of excuses. That's what it was like for me. I mean, I'll be honest, my intro to making a mindfulness practice an everyday habit. I have had some degree of mindfulness in my life for a very long time. I practiced yoga for several times a week all throughout my 20s and even into my early 30s. And that was meditation was baked into it, so to speak. And so it was baked into my routine. But I wrote about this in a Forbes article, oh my God, a lot of years ago now. But when my yoga studio closed, and it was right after my dad died, maybe like 2 months after, I remember being like, oh shit, like now I have to figure out how to actually fit mindfulness into my life for real. Like I can't just like half-ass it and just know that I'm going to get it in a yoga class. Um, and I struggled a little bit, I tried a few different, I would try to set a timer. I would try to, um, you know, put it on my calendar. I used, apps, but it wasn't until I had an accountability buddy, we'll say. And I think that that was very helpful because we checked in with each other every day for, I think it was a month. Did you meditate today? And that got me to make it a habit. I was using an app at the time to have some structure, so that was also really helpful. I think being able to see my progress was really motivating. And it's been almost 10 years and I haven't looked back. I really believe too, and I remember when I was trying to date prior to that, I was showing up as just this version of myself who just was like all trauma right behind the eyes, like really trying to process so many things all at once. It was really getting in the way of my communication and my judge of character and how I felt around people because I was so in my own stuff. I was having a hard time really understanding, um, paying attention to really how someone made me feel and really getting clear on how I felt about them. And I noticed that within a month of starting to meditate regularly, I met my husband. And I remember, I went on dates with other people in that time, but I felt so much more grounded when I went on those dates. I felt like I was so much more in touch with how I felt about them. I was so much more aware of their energy and the effect that it had on me. I noticed I stopped wanting to drink alcohol on dates. That was really interesting. I actually almost canceled my first date with my husband because I didn't want to go to a bar and drink alcohol on a Tuesday night because I had an event the next day and I wanted to just be like clear headed. Um, and I think I also like kind of had my tail between my legs because I'd had an event or a date that had just made me feel like I'm too old for this stuff anymore. So I was just like not feeling like playing that game. But I think I remember meditating before I went and just feeling really calm and grounded. And it was such a different experience. So that has nothing to do with healthcare per se, but it was how I found my way to meditation being a real piece of my day. And my routine has evolved, and I'm sure it will continue to evolve as my life evolves. At this point in my life, I have a non-negotiable short meditation practice in the morning, and I also integrate journaling into my routine. I do morning pages. I've been doing that since I was 19, and it's not always first thing in the morning. For me, morning pages usually happen mid-morning. Sometimes I don't finish my pages until later in the day, but usually it's about 3 pages of whatever needs to write. And that has been a really great mindfulness tool for me. And if I have more than 3 pages to write in a day, like if I am feeling like I need to get something out in the middle of the day, or if I wake up in the middle of the night, like those are also great times for me to write down any thoughts and build some awareness of those thoughts, why I'm having them, what's coming up. Really useful tool. So I want to just share a few ways to practice mindfulness in your everyday life because there's different things for every person. But so, okay, we talked about meditation. It's a great tool we have so much research on. And then things like deep breathing or more structured breath work, another great tool because as we change our breathing, it changes our mind, it changes our brain chemistry, it changes our thinking, it slows our heart rate, helps us calm down. Really useful. Even just focusing on our breath, whether we're doing any kind of particular types of breathing or breath work, just being aware of your breath is even a great way to be mindful. Doing a body scan. So, noticing where you're holding tension. How are you feeling? Is there any discomfort? Is there any way that feels really good? Things like that. If you're someone that needs to be always in motion, and I can relate to that for sure. I had someone call me out. I did a TV appearance earlier this year, and someone left a comment like, "What's she doing with her hands?" Like I talk with my hand. Like I am a fidgeter. This is just how I am. I'm at peace with it. But walking without distraction from electronics, that also counts as mindfulness because yes, it's one thing to kind of be walking and maybe be listening to something on our headphones, or maybe we're doing stuff on our phone as we're walking or we're having a conversation. But when we just look around us or we pay attention to, the sound of our breath, our surroundings, what we hear around us, the temperature, the light, whatever we notice along the path, that can all help us be mindful. More structured mindful movement like yoga, Tai Chi, Qigong, all wonderful ways to bring some mindfulness into your day. Again, even a few minutes can make a difference. We talked about journaling. There's also like different sensory exercises you can do. So for example, like naming something you can see, something you can hear, something you can feel, something you can taste, touch. Just bringing some awareness to that moment. You can also note down a few things you're grateful for, whether that's mentally or in a journal, more structured environment. That gratitude can be really powerful for changing our energy and also observing our thoughts and feelings. This was one that kind of got drilled into me as a teen, and sometimes, there have definitely been times where I feel like I can take it too far, but I'll be like, I notice I'm thinking this negative thing, and now I'm afraid I'm gonna manifest something negative. Like, but then again, like when you are aware of that thought or those feelings, they can also be really useful information. Like something I've learned to do when I have those thoughts and when I start to be like, oh no, like this is that bad and thinking this like causes me to, I'm like, okay, wait, I have the thought, I acknowledge it, I'm going to reframe this thought. So that's one way how observing our thoughts and feelings can help us shift our energy in a more positive direction. So, whatever works for you. And you might have different versions. Folks, for example, like my mindfulness routine looks different on work days versus non-work days. And there may be days where you need to streamline things or days where you have the time to spread it out a little bit. Like you have to do what works for you. I mean, with healthcare work, like, okay, so work is a really big part of our life, but it's only a part of our life. And it's really important to be grounded and present, not just in our life, but also to be grounded, not to be present ground just in our work life, but also other parts of our life. So it's not just about showing up for our clients, our patients, but it's also about the people we love, our friends, our family, our communities, showing up for ourselves. So, mindfulness is a powerful and oftentimes free tool that can help us just have a better sense of balance and inner calm and just show up how we want to show up for ourselves and for others. So, if you found this helpful, I'd love to hear which mindfulness tools you enjoyed. So, maybe take a picture of yourself of enjoying your favorite mindfulness activity, post it on Instagram stories, and tag me at Jess Cording. I'd love to hear your thoughts on mindfulness. And if you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. They really do matter and help me to continue to bring you useful content. And I'm just grateful that you're here. So thank you so much for spending a little time with me today. And yeah, I hope you had a wonderful time listening to this. Great rest of your day. We'll talk soon.